outgoing versus attention seeking. Well, first of all, I'm a natural introvert, so neither one of these is all that natural for me. In order for me to be either outgoing or attention seeking, I have to actually put energy in. A lot of people, I guess, natural extroverts, they actually gain energy from interactions with people. They gain energy from being out, being social, being in a crowd of people. I'm not that way. Naturally, I'm an introvert. I much prefer a one-on-one conversation with someone. I much prefer even reading a good book to going out and talking to a whole big group of people. But I can do it if I have to because I've trained myself to do it. I'm capable of doing it. And that's the thing. I'm capable of doing it. I can if I have to. So what this implies is that for me to do that, it requires me to put out energy. It requires me to put energy into the interaction rather than get energy out of it. And the funny thing is, if I do put that energy in, then I'll end up in that one-on-one conversation that's intriguing to me. I'll end up in a situation that I like, and then I can draw energy from that. But in order to draw that energy in the first place, I have to output energy. It doesn't just happen naturally. It's not just gonna come to me. And so you have to do that. It's sort of like, if you were to imagine like a ball sitting at the base of like a hill, right? If you roll it to the top of the hill and let it go, now you can let it go and it'll roll down the hill on its own volition based on gravity. But getting it to the top of the hill requires effort. It's the same thing with starting a conversation. You need to put in that initial effort to get over the hump, and then once you're there, it can roll naturally, it can flow naturally. You need to put in the effort to begin with. And that's the thing with being outgoing, is that there is a certain level of effort, intensity, output that needs to be put in. And to me, attention seeking is a way of trying to short circuit the process. It's a way of trying to shortcut that. First thing that comes to mind with regards to this is the idea of peacocking. Back in the day, you know, wearing something flashy, wearing like, I don't know, top hat or like flashy like painted nails, wearing a really brightly colored shirt, a shirt where it says like fuck you on it, I don't know, something like that. In order to get attention, in order to actually get people to open you or to make the entrance to the conversation easier. And to me, first of all, that stuff can work. That stuff actually kind of can work. And the issue is it actually can work and it gets you attention, and that's nice. But the problem is it also puts you in a sector of reality where you're not in people's normal everyday life, where you're not the type of person where a girl thinks about what kind of guy would I date. They're not thinking about you with the fuck you hat and the top, fuck you shirt and the top hat, right? So you're putting yourself a little out of the reality of what they're actually looking for, and you're making it harder for yourself to build comfort. You're making it harder for yourself to have a real interaction. But you're making it easier at the start. You're giving yourself a crutch to hang on. And that's what I think being attention seeking is. It's a way of sort of projecting a little too much out there. It's a way of hiding the ego, and it's a way of hiding from putting in the effort. What you're essentially doing when you do something that's attention seeking or reactive or button pushing and that kind of stuff, what you're saying is basically, I don't want to put in the energy myself, or I don't know how to put in the proper energy myself, or how to properly move this along. And so I'm going to do something that's just out there. And what that's going to do is it's going to get me a rejection, which hopefully won't hurt, because I haven't put myself on the line, so it's not me getting rejected. So it's a soft rejection that doesn't hurt, and it's a likely rejection. Or if I'm lucky, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that someone will jump on what I've done and go with it, and then I'll be by accident into a conversation. And then hopefully I'll know how to take it from there. And so what you're essentially trying to do is shortcut the process. You're essentially trying to, if you're a comedian, it's like the equivalent of going for the cheap joke using like fart humor instead of actually having a real joke, having a real character to your act, and actually developing something great, all right? They say that the best way to train a bad comedian, it would be to put him on stage with absolutely nothing, right? Just put him on stage and he'll just be awkward and nervous in front of the crowd, and the first nervous thing he does, the crowd might laugh just because they're kind of empathetic to his nervousness, and they understand, and it's just kind of funny that he's in that situation. So he'll get the cheap pratfall laugh. And then he'll train his brain that that's how you get laughs, and he'll come up with a routine that will be completely full of pratfalls and cheap jokes rather than ever developing any depth. So he'll prevent himself from ever having greatness. And that's what happens when you're button pushing or reaction seeking. And it's very, very tempting. It's very seductive. Not in the sense of seducing a woman. It's a very seductive trap to fall into for yourself, because you get an immediate positive, you get immediate positive feedback, you get immediate instant gratification, and it feels good. But the thing to realize is what gets you here doesn't necessarily get you there. Just because it gets you a good reaction or indicator of interest doesn't mean that just having a girl laughing is not the equivalent to having a girl committed to you, chasing you, or having a girl willing to sleep with you. And so being attention seeking or being reaction seeking or button pushing, any of those kind of things, it's very tempting to do, because again, you get that immediate positive feedback and it feels good in that moment. But what you have to realize is you're gaming to get a result. You're gaming to have a real relationship with a girl and to make something great, not to have a series of cheap laughs or a series of forced indicators of interest. So that to me is the difference between being reaction seeking or attention seeking and being naturally outgoing. Also, I think that it is a shortcut for putting in that effort and that energy. Okay, another metaphor for this is when I run a boot camp, the first couple hours of the boot camp are extremely important as an instructor. If I do a really good job in the first couple hours of establishing the theme and the tempo of the boot camp, of establishing the expectations, of getting the students focused and on my side and on the same boat with what we're trying to do, then the rest of the boot camp usually flows really smoothly. But if I'm lazy and don't do that properly at the start, then what happens is throughout the boot camp, all these other issues come up, all these different issues come up that I should have addressed in the first hour or two. And it becomes a problem throughout, and it actually takes me far, far, far more energy. Something I could have addressed in 5 minutes before it happened, I have to spend 3 or 4 hours or even more addressing after it happens. And so that's the thing similarly with being outgoing as a natural introvert in conversation, is that if I start out and I actually do just get over that hump and just put in the requisite amount of energy, say, okay, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it, I'm gonna put in the energy, I'm gonna do what I have to, I'm going to assume the burden of the conversation. And if I do that well, then the conversation naturally flows afterwards. If I don't do that well, then what happens, I end up in this clunky conversation that ends up taking a lot of time, taking a lot of effort. Maybe I end up in a relationship where I've started out with a bad frame and I have to undo all that work and rewire the entire relationship. And so it's so important to be willing to put in that effort up front, to understand that, yes, in order to do proper game, in order to start the interaction properly, I'm going to have to put in that effort. I'm gonna have to just summon up what's inside of me. It's going to be awkward. I have to assume the burden. I can't just put it on the girl's shoulders and hope that she'll have it happen. I am the man and I must take charge and I must make it happen. Right, and funny enough, once you actually do that, it feels right and it feels good. It has that sort of satisfying feeling of excellence achieved, right? When you've made a great video blog, or you've done a great work of art, or you played a great sports game, there's that feeling of accomplishment, feeling that you've overcome something, and that's a wonderful, amazing, incredible feeling. But again, that doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen without you putting that effort. So my suggestion to you is this: put in the effort to put yourself on the line. Put in the effort to interact with someone as the real you, the fullest you, and trust that that's going to be good enough, and take whatever effort is necessary for that. Don't fall back on cheap gimmicks. Don't use some gimmicky line. Don't use something you're wearing as the catalyst for the conversation. Make you the catalyst for the conversation. And if you notice yourself falling into the trap of doing something cliche or doing something obvious or easy, catch yourself and change it up. It's a big thing I've noticed when I started watching myself, my infield video that I've done recently. I started watching it on film. I noticed in my best sets, what would happen is there'd be a moment where it was really, really easy for me to do something canned, something formulaic, or something standard game from 2003, 2004. And the times when I would fall back on that, my sets would never be that good. The times when I would consciously short circuit it and actually put in the effort to say something different, whether it's as good or not, but something that's from the heart and something that requires my own original thought and my own original energy, and bring that to the conversation, that's when my sets would be immaculate. And that's when I would get the amazing sets and the great pulls and the great reactions from girls. So that's what I'm gonna tell you to do. Put in the effort up front. Get out of that introverted shell, make yourself outgoing, be willing to assume the burden of the conversation. I promise you, if you do it right, you'll get over that hill, and then the conversation will flow amazingly well by gravity. You'll be able to sit back and let the girl game you. And that's what you want. If you don't put in enough effort, you're gonna be putting in say it takes 100 to get the girl to game you and a 60 to keep her around. If you put in a 60% effort, then you're gonna be putting in that 60% effort for the entire 7 hours of interaction. If you put in that 100% effort up front, maybe you put in that 100% effort for 2 or 3 minutes, and then she's hooked in, she's chasing you, and then you can chill back and put in 10% effort the entire rest of the way. And maybe it's even negative effort because it's fun for you and it actually builds your energy and you enjoy doing it. So that's what it should be, is you put in that effort up front and it ends up being less effort the rest of the way. You get her gaming, you get the relationship on your terms and have it perfect, okay? So that's it. As a natural introvert, and for the natural introverts out there, I encourage you, put in that effort up front, but Don't fall back on gimmicks. Actually come from the core, express from your heart, trust that whatever you have to say that comes from you will be good enough, and trust that even if it's not, at least you'll learn from it and you'll get there eventually. Don't rely on gimmicks, don't rely on button pushing, don't rely on the cheap laugh. Don't rely on getting a girl's attention by saying fuck you, when you could get a girl's attention by being genuine and putting your heart on the line. All right, that's it. Got to get on a flight back to the US, and I will talk to you from there. Take care.